Welcome to the Fanatics of Film. I am Joe, and I'm here with my friend Ben.
Hello, thanks for joining us.
Tonight we're going to do a brief kind of a review, essentially, of the death of Superman. Kind of a spoiler-free review for the most part. The name gives it away anyways. The Death of Superman animated movie from DC. Yes. This is actually the second adaptation of this storyline based on the famous 1993 storyline where Superman gets killed by Doomsday.
And forgive me, was that the original name of the original comic as well? The Death of Superman? Was that the name of it?
It was Doomsday. It was the storyline,
so
which went into the reign of Superman, which we'll get into later.
So when you first... I remember this coming out and people are talking about it and they already read it. But what I mean is when people first bought the comic, did they already know that he was going to die? I mean, was that something that was already given away? Or is it something that people just literally found out by turning a page?
Yeah, well, I mean, once the issue dropped,
right? It was a lot.
Then everybody knew, and it made the news. It was a big deal. I mean, it was people. There's a documentary on the Superman Doomsday animated film. They talk about that. And I'm trying to think DC had planned it out. And they'd been hinting at this story, but I just don't think most people just didn't think it was going to happen.
But the point is that it was discovered by a lot of people. A lot of people found this out from literally turning the page and being surprised as hell.
Yeah, well, and they kept that surprise up for about 3 or 4 months after that issue where there were no Superman publications. He had four titles at the time. It was Action Comics, Superman, Adventures of Superman, and Superman Man of Steel, and they ceased publication for like 4 months. So I was in a panic.
I can't even imagine, dude.
I couldn't either. I couldn't. How could we live in a world without Superman, like Superman comics? That boggled my mind, and it terrified me because I was at the time I was picking up virtually every one of those issues. And this is the second film adaptation of this storyline. Back in 2007, part of when DC began doing the regular animated movies, that was their launching ground. They had other animated movies, and they'd had another, The Return of the Joker was PG-13, their first animated PG-13 movie. But this was the first of these ongoing series where they're doing 2 or 3, sometimes even 4 a year, where, the other DC animated movies were like once, you never knew that they were coming out. They just would come out once every few years, and you're like, oh, a Batman animated movie. Oh, okay, that's interesting. So they had already done the Doomsday storyline, only it wasn't the comic book storyline. It is, but it streamlined it all. I don't know if you ever saw it back in 2007.
Yeah.
It streamlined it all, so they cut out every other superhero. They didn't even do the reign of the Superman storyline where, like the clone Superboy and the Eradicator and Steel all make their appearance. They just kind of moved right past that, and I was never satisfied with that animated movie. I mean, it's fun to watch. Yeah. I own it. I don't mind watching it. It got the core of the story across, but I always wished that that had been more faithful to the comic book of the DC universe.
And this one was way better. So do you feel like this one was more of a comic book adaptation? I mean, it seems like, okay.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there are definitely differences. There's always going to be differences in an adaptation.
Were there this, because I mean, it was like almost I think all of the original 7 Justice League are in this. Mm-hmm. Were they in the original comic or no? Or were any of them?
Well, I think some of them there were different League members. I mean, there was a lot of DC characters that did pop up, especially for the funeral.
Right.
That's right. So after he died, they did the funeral for a friend, and then that was it for 4 months. Then the reign of Superman. By the way, spoiler alert: there will be a sequel. The reign of the Superman storyline is getting adapted, and that's going to be exciting. And they seed that in this movie, which is really cool.
And when is that coming out?
I think I don't think it comes out this fall. I think it's either this fall or early next year.
So soon, within the next probably 6 months.
Yeah, because there's a production trailer on the Death of Superman as their next movie. And by the way, if you get this movie in the physical format, which I do, and you'd like to go to the trailers, which I do, if you don't want spoilers and you're not familiar with that storyline, do not watch that production trailer before you watch this movie, because it does
Spoil.
It's a big spoiler.
Yeah.
Another cool thing about it is a friend of mine, Charles Halford, is the voice of Bibbo in this, which always surprises me. You know, when I see my friend on a show or a film that I dig on. So that was pretty cool. And yes, he will be in the second one too. So I'm stoked on that. But yeah, overall, I thought it was a good adaptation. What did you think?
Yeah, I did love this. I have been blown away by. Joe and I have talked about this before. Joe and I are big DC heavies. We love the DC universe. We want to see it succeed, and you know, everybody always constantly talks about how Marvel's killing DC in the cinematic universe. Blah blah blah.
Why? It doesn't have to be a competition.
Right, and that's you know, who cares? But the point that I was getting to is that actually, well, if you look at the animated, they're kind of killing. The
animated Disney's animated films do blow. Or Disney. One day, Disney will own DC and Warner Brothers too. After they will take over the world. But no, the DC animated movies are definitely superior to any, and their television series, animated television series, are always more superior to Marvel's for some reason.
Which to me still is, it's like a living, breathing comic. It really is. I mean, you don't get the detail that you get from a comic book, but but you still get beautiful art from it, and that's what I love about it. And the story, everything is badass. So yeah, I did love this one. The moments that the moments that were spent with Clark and Lois, those were really great.
Yeah.
And those built you up to really feeling it when he dies. So
yeah. I'm interested to see where they go in the second film. How much of that, because that kind of gets metaphysical. Superman kind of battling from the afterlife, and so that'll be interesting to see if they go that route.
Because I think, if I remember correct, the last one was just like his heart was still beating somewhere, right? In the other animated, well, maybe that was.
That was
okay.
Yeah.
So they hadn't touched on this metaphysical stuff, which will be really interesting.
Yeah.
To see.
Yeah, and I know that DC. I know that they've got another movie coming out this year, which makes animated movie, which makes me wonder if they're, again within the next 6 months for this one, because they've put out quite. We got Gotham by Gaslight, we got Suicide Squad, Hell to Pay, which both were R-rated. So they've done 4 R-rated animated movies now. We got Batman: The Killing Joke, Batman: Gotham by Gaslight, Justice League Dark, and Suicide Squad: Hell to Pay, and they're all R-rated. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, no. So then there was also Batman Ninja and The Death of Superman. So I think we're due for one more. That's 5 this year. Man, they are just pumping them out. Oh, plus the web series Constantine: City of Demons and the Freedom Fighters: The Ray are the little 5-minute webisodes are from the 2 seasons are edited together as a feature film. So they've already got Freedom Fighter: The Ray, the animated movie, out right now, and Constantine: City of Demons is coming out, I think, next month. They're just pumping this stuff out, and keep it coming, because I love these animated movies.
And I've actually just found myself resolving to that. It's like, we've wanted a really awesome DC cinematic universe for a long time, and I've wanted it. We've all wanted it. We've talked about this on this channel many times. Joe and I have talked about it. We talked about all the different things that could happen, all the things that they could be doing. We know that Warner Brothers is kind of dropping the ball in their cinematic universe. However, I'm really grateful that we're getting this animated stuff. It's really, really nice. Yeah, the animated stuff and a lot of their live action television shows are just keeping me going too. What was your favorite part of this movie? What was your favorite part of this?
Well, it's going to have to be the main battle, the final battle between Doomsday and Superman, because to me it's so iconic in Superman's. Like, no matter how many times they reboot Superman or reboot the DC universe, with the New 52 and Rebirth and all the Crisis stuff, that it's such a part of his mythology that it'll happen again and again and again in different ways.
Was that close to the comic that way, at least as far as the battle is concerned?
It was close. It was a good animated representation, but there's nothing like reading that comic where the last issue, there's like no dialogue. It begins with a splash page, and it just kind of goes. It's like a storyboard. In some ways, because I do like Batman versus Superman, especially the director's cut, a lot. I think it's a really fun, really epic film.
Yeah, any of you out there who hates BVS, and you probably haven't seen the director's cut.
I thought it was just,
it's the real version. It's the real version.
For being bringing those characters together, I really enjoyed it. However, I have always wanted to see an actual live action, like faithful adaptation of this comic book, because it's just, I was 17 years old. It just tore me up that they would kill Superman off. I figured he'd come back. I think everyone figured he'd come back. It's not like he's Tim Drake or anything where you can just kind of, not Tim Drake, Jason Todd. My bad. But so when they actually introduced Doomsday in Batman vs Superman and how he killed Superman there, I'm fine with it because it's just another one of DC's alternate universe's alternate way of telling the story and doing it for film. But I kind of wish that they built up their individual character films first, then created their Justice League, then they could do the Superman Doomsday this way, because I think this is a really good representation of that comic book. But imagine if this had been live action. Wow, I probably would have cried. I don't know. I think I would have been sad. Yeah. This almost got me, but not quite.
I teared up a little bit. I mean, just because of the build that they had between Lois and Clark there. I mean, that's what you have to sell it to really sell it, because you have to feel the pain that Lois is feeling. I mean, that's right. I mean, that's essentially what it is. For me, that's what it is.
Yeah, no, you have to feel that.
Yeah,
because their relationship is such at this point such a major part of who Clark is. So, and Superman's story. So they definitely had to go that way.
And so I really hope that whatever they do with live action, if they ever do that they build on that. But I know that they probably won't, because they're fast tracking the Supergirl movie and throwing Superman on the back burner. So
yeah, no, that's a shame. It would be nice to have a Superman movie where he takes on Brainiac. Something I've always wanted to see.
Yeah, yep. As we've discussed many times, Brainiac is one of the coolest villains ever. That's what I think is so great about Superman's universe, is that all the villains are really amazing. Batman and Superman,
and the Flash. The Flash's rogues gallery is really good. But at the same time, like if not Brainiac, I'd like to see more of Darkseid and new, Apocalypse. And DC should get all cosmic too, and introduce the new gods, because I want to see Mr. Miracle and the Forever People, the Black Racer. It's so cool. And it's tied to Superman, thanks to, because those characters were all created by the legendary Jack Kirby at his short stint at DC, and he tied that all in through his Jimmy Olsen comic books, which are kind of fun. Nobody draws Superman like Jack Kirby. It's the oddest looking Superman, but I dig it. But Darkseid is probably my favorite Superman villain. I mean, he's technically a DC villain, because anybody can take him on, but Superman seems to have the most confrontations with him, so that'd be interesting.
What's the name of the big large woman that lives on Apocalypse also?
Granny Goodness.
Goodness. Yeah, it's like
Granny Goodness.
What? You mean you prefer Darkseid over her? What?
Yeah. I loved that's the thing, is DC just seems to get it right in their animated format.
They do.
Sometimes even their live action television series, only up until recently, their live action television series haven't necessarily been good representations. They've been enjoyable. I like them. But like Smallville started to get on the right direction. But their animated television series in the 90s and all the way up have really delved into the mythology.
Well, and they know the audience. They know the people that are watching these things. Yeah. And they know the people who really care about this are huge DC fans who want to see and they know what to give them. And it's like, well, you could just be doing this in the cinematic universe. That's
exactly. Now, what was your favorite scene in this?
I mean, I'd have to any of the scenes with Lois and Kal-El,
intimate dialogue.
Like that was literally those parts, of course, and of course the action scenes. I love that they really had. I was surprised at how many different members of the Justice League they had in this. I didn't think that they would have so many.
Yeah.
And I did like that. And of course, the action sequences are really great. But I think the parts that stand out to me mostly are the build between Lois and Kal-El.
Yeah. I mean, the animation's really nice and fluid. They're not, again, like Ben was saying earlier, I mean, they don't have all the detail that you would get in a comic panel from an artist in that sense. And it's not quite theatrical animation either. It's somewhere in between, but it's definitely, it's consistently enjoyable and good. And the action sequences, I love the movements and the flow, you know?
Well, it's better. It's actually better than three-dimensional art because, like I said, it's a living comic that way.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm so glad that they haven't done that because I know that a lot of studios have abandoned two-dimensional art completely.
Well,
like for instance,
it's all computer art now. It's just they're
it's still 2D though.
Yeah,
right?
It's still 2D, and most of the Marvel and DC animated television shows, at least, are still that way. Occasionally, they delve into CG, like Green Lantern or Beware the Batman, which are both really good shows. And I miss them. I miss the DC Nation. I don't know if you ever watched that on Cartoon Network. That's where they would show like Young Justice, Green Lantern, the animated series, Beware the Batman, and then all the DC Nation shorts, where they were getting really obscure. Really obscure. I mean, they're throwing out Shade the Changing Man, and who were some of the other ones that I was? Vibe, well before he was on the Flash. Did you ever watch any of those shorts?
I didn't. I'm sorry.
With Deadman and yeah, no, they were fun. I've got a bunch of them. They've never been officially released, but I'm cool that way, so I'll have to show them to you. But yeah, overall, I'm gonna say that this was a 3-star enjoyable entry into the DC animated library of films.
Yeah, and it's definitely. I mean, this is. I mean, it's rated R, right? This is rated R.
No, it's PG-13.
I could have sworn there were a few swears in there.
No, but it's PG-13.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not rated R.
Yeah.
I mean, it probably could have been, but the comic net wasn't necessarily that way either. It's violent, but Superman dies and Doomsday dies, but it's not. It's not like Batman the Killing Joke or Gotham by Gaslight,
right?
Or, so PG-13. In fact, since they've been doing these movies, beginning with Superman's Doomsday, almost all of them have been PG-13. 4 of them have been R. 1 of them was PG. Like, why? Green Lantern Emerald Knights was PG, and I don't understand why.
Yeah, Emerald Knights. I mean, I wasn't a huge fan of that one, was it? Or there was one Green Lantern movie that wasn't very good.
There was First Flight, which was really good, which was his introduction. And this was before they ever made the live-action movie. And Emerald Knights was an anthology, like Batman Gotham Knights, that tied into the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern film that I actually think would have been a good film if not for Ryan Reynolds and if not for the way they used parallax. So, but yes, because you saw Batman Gotham Knights, right? It ties into the Dark Knight. Not very well either.
Oh yeah, Gotham Knights, yes.
Yeah, the 3 anthology. So, yeah, I just hope they continue this level of animated storytelling, because I look forward to each new film that comes out.
Give us a Superman movie with Brainiac, at least before we're dead.
Even if it's animated.
Yeah, that's
right.
Yeah,
I mean, they did that. They did that back in 2006 with Superman Brainiac Attack, which was done in the same animation style as the Superman animated series. Bruce Timm was, I think the writer of that, if not the producer, obviously. But it wasn't set in the Superman animated series continuity. It was the same character designs, but like Batman and Harlequin, it's not set in the same continuity.
But it was Superman.
But
it was part of the series, though.
No, that's what I mean. It's not set in that continuity. It's done in the same animation style and the same character designs, but not the same continuity. But I mean, Clancy Brown is back. It's the same voice actors.
Right.
You got Clancy Brown as Brainiac, but it's kind of a streamlined story of Brainiac. But it's the only animated film we've had so far where he is the villain. So it'd be nice to see one that's PG-13 now. Like right now. Like DC should just have that ready right now. No, but sometime in the future would be nice. I'm saying.
Thanks for joining us. This has been the Fanatics of Film. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. That gets us in the algorithm. That gets us into the rhythm of being able to be seen by others. Thank you so much for joining us.
As always, like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.